So this panel is all about international soft landings, why they matter for the local business retention and expansion programs. We put this panel together specifically with the municipalities in mind because we know with SelectChicago, most things happen at the local level. And the way that Sitka needs to work with the municipalities is understanding those boots on the ground with the hard work you guys do every day and knowing the service providers, the manufacturers in your town, and how we can help grow those businesses. So I'm going to go through real quick the introduction of each of our panelists today, and then I'm going to have Michael go through a presentation on Poland, and we will then go into a discussion about case studies of what's been working and what doesn't work, both sides, both inbound to the US and outbound to their host countries. So Michael is the head of the Chicago office for Polish investment and trade. It is engaged in promotion of bilateral business cooperation between Poland and the United States. Prior to joining the government sector of Poland, he worked over 6 years of different experience in public accounting, which included audit and assurance experience for Big Four national and regional firms. He also has a background with medium-large clients and commercial property management experience. Michael is one of the 2 panelists that we have today that actually are alumni of UIC. So he is happy to be back here today. And so Michael will be talking about Poland. Then we have Michael Lopez, and I would have never put that pronunciation with Michael because I'm also a Michael. So I find that really kind of cool. I think my daughter would get a kick out of that too. Now I'm reading in Spanish. And he is the Deputy Country Director for Procomor. Did I get that right? Procomor. And his background is a BA and an MA from economics from the Universidad de Costa Rica. And also, I'm really curious to learn about your master's in tech from NYU, learning about entrepreneurial development. So I might just snag you at lunch and, we won't come back. Wenchel Chung? Really? Okay. Is with the Hong Kong Trade Development Council. He is the director of the Midwest of Hong Kong Trade Development Council. He's been here since November 2013. And how many states do you represent? 20. So just a few. So when we talk about mega regions, we're going to be finding out all of these panelists represent more than just, say, Illinois or the Chicago region. Most of them do 5 to 25 states. He heads the Chicago office. His works with business development, strategic planning, and fosters commercial and investment ties between Hong Kong, mainland China, and 20 Midwestern states. Before he came to this posting, he and Michael have become fast friends because he also used to work the Poland desk before coming here, and also worked in Europe and other stations in Europe and Latin America. He has a BS degree in business administration from Cal State California State Polytechnic University, and also an LLM in international law from the University of London. Shakira Motan? Okay. As the day goes on, I will butcher more and more names, so just correct me as we go. Our steering committee knows I am god-awful with names. She is the Trade Commissioner with the South African Consulate General, and she's been focusing on investment promotion in the Midwest and the West Coast. She's been with the department for over 18 years. And then Jipo Nambuya? Not bad. We talked about this early. When you came in, we talked about this. You told me to ignore the Y's. And a founder and principal of Virgil LLC. She has a huge resume behind her. And before getting into a host of different things with, really want to learn more about the different types of rule of law issues relative to energy and education, but also some of the things we talked about before. But before coming into this, you got a a degree with distinction from University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, but then you went to Ohio State, so I really don't know how that worked. And in our crowd, we have a lot of Michigan fans. Yeah, there's Karen in the back going, rah, 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 Michigan. And then we have our Ohio States. And I think by the time we end this, we could actually put together, pretty much most representations from the Big Ten in this program. So that is our panel. So I'm going to have Michael start off, same type of protocol, push down to start, and then and we'll go from there.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Michael, for this warm introduction. As Michael mentioned, my name is Michael Resnick, another Michael, and I'm the Chicago Bureau Chief of the Polish Investment and Trade Agency. And so basically, I would like to talk about the agency, who we are, what we do, a little insight about Poland, the current the stage of the economy, and also some incentives that are offered in my native country. Okay, so yeah, so basically Polish Investment and Trade Agency and the Poland-United States business relations. So, well, Poland. In terms of area and population, Poland is actually the sixth largest country in the European Union and also the eighth largest economy in the EU. The currency, Polish zloty, the per capita GDP constantly growing every single year. Also, the GDP growth of 2018 is 5.1% as compared to the 2.7% of the EU average. Also, Poland is the largest EU funds beneficiary with approximately 100 billion euros of funding. Export up by 7% as compared to 2017. The 2018 figures are 221 billion euros and 226 billion euros in terms of imports, and also almost 10% increase as compared to 2017. FDI stocks of Poland at the end of 2017 was approximately 200 billion euros. And also Poland is a member of the European Union. NATO, we celebrated the 20th anniversary, 20 years anniversary of accession to the NATO on March 12th of 2019. And also Poland is a member of the OECD, the World Trade Organization, as well as the Schengen zone. If you take a look at the economic, at the GDP per capita of Poland, you can tell it has gone a tremendous growth over the last 28 years since the communism collapsed in 1989. And also with, in 2017, Poland achieved the developed market status as the first Central and Eastern European region country. Well, in terms of the incentives offered in the country itself, so why Poland? Why people decide to invest in and companies decide to invest in Poland? Well, first of all, it's a very highly skilled and relatively young labor force. Over 26 million people, inhabitants under the age of 55, and unemployment rate at the 5.5% as for 2019. Significant internal market, as I mentioned before, sixth largest market in the EU in terms of area and population, and also access to the 510 inhabitants of the European Union. Significant academic hub, 1.3 million of students and 35,000 graduates every year. Quickly developing infrastructure, over 1,100 kilometers of highways under construction, and also the fifth longest highway system in Europe. Business-friendly environment. Poland was rated second in the world to do business in by the CEO World Magazine this year, 2019, and also last year, Business Insider rated Poland as the top third country in the world to invest in after Malaysia and I believe Philippines. Poland was third and the first in Europe. Also, Poland has advanced 41 position in the doing business ranking over the last 7 years. In terms of incentives, well, we used to have those special economic zones throughout the country. Right now, since 2018, the entire country is one huge special economic zone with tax incentives from 5 to up to 15 years of corporate income tax waiver, depending on the location, capital invested, and the region of Poland. So that's pretty much the most significant development there. In terms of the labor market, Poland has the unemployment rate has been tremendously dropping and continuously dropping over the years, with the standard of living increasing over the past. Well, we can see past 10 years on the PowerPoint, but it's been growing over the last pretty much 28 years since 1990. So who we are? Polish Investment and Trade Agency. So basically, we're the economic diplomacy. We represent and grow and build the economic diplomacy of Poland with 70 locations, and here's a full map, 70 locations throughout the world. We usually have one office per country. Exceptions are China with 2 offices and US with more offices than anywhere else. So it's at 6 locations in the US. 2 of each of the coasts, 2 offices on the East Coast with New York and Washington, D.C., 2 on the West Coast, and also the Chicago and Houston offices are currently being opened. So I have the privilege and pleasure to be in charge of the Chicago office and to be growing this office pretty much from the beginning over the last several months, and the range the office covers is pretty much the entire Midwest. So in terms of services we offer to mostly Polish companies entering this market, helping them enter in the smoother possible way, and also in terms of those services, so basically we help them with B2B meetings, market entry strategies, project management. Also at certain locations worldwide we offer co-working places. But also we are the go-to person, go-to entity for the US companies interested in going to Europe if they are looking for the right location. We want to make sure they are up to date with the Polish offer and everything Poland, all the incentives actually that exist in Poland. And if you had a chance to grab one of those reports that were like by the registration desk, the Polish Investment Zone report, it talks in detail about all the incentives available in every region of the country. One of the largest events we host every year, where all the trade commissioners of Poland Poland actually come to Warsaw once a year for this event. It's the Pike Expo. So we hold this in October every year, and last year the event generated 5,500 participants. This included 80% of business. So we had over 4,000 Polish companies interested in global expansion. Also, in terms of the priority industries, 3 independent institutes developed a list of 12 industries perspective for global expansion in Poland over the last, in the upcoming years. So these include biotechnology and pharmaceuticals, automotive and aviation parts, construction and development, furniture, Polish organic food, IT, ICT, cosmetics, medical equipment, and also yachts and boats. Not too many people are aware of that, but Poland is actually the #1 boating exporter in the EU, with yachts and boats exported throughout the world. About like 400 million euros of 2018 boats were exported from Poland. Poland and the US trade summary. This graph pictures the gradual growth that we've been experiencing over the last decade. So basically, it doubled over the last 10 years. And Poland does have favorable balance of trade with the US. So we do export more from Poland to US than we import right now. In terms of the well-known American companies already present in Poland, so here's the list of just a few of those companies. I mean, most of the well-known brands. And also we have some of the Polish businesses that are present in the Midwest here, with the England, for example, being one of the luxury cosmetics companies, Asseco, Konotoksha Fintech, Asseco IT, Facro, the window manufacturer, and many, many more. So right now, we are, as I mentioned before, we are opening this office. My lovely coworker Alexandra and I are actually in charge of this and of this project. And so if you have any questions, you would like to learn more about our office, who we are, and more in terms of figures about Poland and our services and how we actually help Polish companies with their expansion to this country or to the Midwest, specifically to the Midwest, feel free to contact any of us. Thank you so much for your attention. It's a pleasure to be here back at the UIC. And I never expected I'd be actually coming back as Poland's trade commissioner. I actually thought I'd be coming back as the president of Poland. Well, it's yet to come, right? Thank you so much for your attention. Have a good one.
All right, I'm going to scoop ahead, and I'm going to bring up Chipo, and then I'm going to come back to Michael. So, Chipo, and you can be here or you can stay at the stair. Okay, can everybody check your mic?
Can you hear me? Okay, so as Michael said, traditional spelling Michael, I'm an attorney here in Chicago, started on financial services. I also worked with UKTI, which is the United Kingdom Trade Investment Office, as well as their economics, as well as the economics officer. And I'm here because I wanted to kind of like set a frame for the case studies and the conversations that you all will be having. So as a lawyer, I'm going to be chatty. So I'll try and, make it fun. What I really wanted to speak with you all about really is as you think about trade investment and you think about, okay, we need investments or we want businesses that trade, businesses to trade into various countries or trade internationally. I think there are kind of three key takeaways. So if you kind of like block me out for the rest of the day, doesn't matter. But I would say, take away these three key points. The first thing is in collaborating and working together, whether it is as a region within Chicagoland or working as a region regionally as the MSA, because that is our greatest strength. And all of those kind of culturally here in the US, we're used to, okay, we're competing, if that guy gets it, then the other guy doesn't get it. Most of the people who you're going to be working with and speaking with are going to be thinking about you wholly as here are the assets within a broad geographic swath. So I think what we need to do is to suspend our natural American kind of competitiveness and say, oh, okay, Arlington Heights, I'm going to work with Laser. What do we have in common with Hoffman Estates? What do we have in common with Skokie that we can then put together an offer that works for all of us? And if nothing else, then it is looking at a network and saying, oh, okay, I can be the person who can help network you around this region. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing that's important to think about is what's the domestic legal framework here that will enable you to do what you want to do, whether it relates to trade, whether it relates to investment, and think about that as on the national level, as well as on the state level, as well as on the local and regional, state regional level, as well as on the local level. Because there are going to be laws, there are going to be incentives, there are going to be taxation issues There are going to be investment issues and questions that you're going to have to consider as you think about either bringing in a business into your locality or taking out a business internationally. And those issues are going to matter cross-border. So for example, DCEO, State of Illinois, has a trade and investment task force. So that task force is there from the state on the legislative level to help support businesses throughout the state of Illinois, not just Chicago, but throughout the state of Illinois in, okay, what's going on politically, what's going on economically, and how do we take that information and then tie that and connect that with the information that you learn from your trade offices. So as you think about that, it is then also thinking about that a symbiotic relationship, because it is a symbiotic relationship. And then further to my first point is then thinking, oh, okay, I'm based in Chicagoland, but maybe there's someone in Indiana, maybe there's someone in Michigan, maybe there's someone in Wisconsin who I may actually need to work with in an economic development agency to say, okay, I can make these links, I can make these connections. But you then have to then consider, as I said, what are the state laws? And maybe those are the state laws that you can combine and bring to bear to then make a more robust offering, whether it's an export or whether it's an importing offering. The third consideration is that cultural competency, the cultural consideration. Doing business is different everywhere. You cannot assume that, oh, okay, we both want to do business. What does that mean? What does that mean for where you want to go? So it's really that point where you use your trade officers and you really sit down, okay, how does a negotiation look? How does what are the laws? How do I make sure that I'm characterizing that, to Teddy's point, a trade is an investment and an investment is a trade. Because that's the context that we're working in. That's the environment, and that's how trade and that's how business actually happens. It is not merely a transactional. It is a relational. It's a relationship, and it's a relational. Structure where I want to do business, and I mean I'm a Midwesterner. I want to do business. So you're gonna sit down at the table. No. You go other places in the world, I want to do business. That means I want to talk about something, and I'm going to talk about something for multiple days, weeks, months. I will be late. Time is fluid in different places. Investment structures, priorities. So I may have said, oh, this is the priority that I want to do, but that priority may come with other priorities or other considerations, and so you have to kind of listen to what they may be, and if you don't know, then you ask, and that's where you really work with and collaborate and use your and use the skills of the trade offices that you have here, and don't think, okay, I know my business. And all I need is for them to give me this, and this introduction, and then I can go on my merry way. It's a partnership, it's a relationship. So I would say those three things. The fourth thing that I would add to this, so don't forget this one either. The fourth thing that I would add to this is we're all looking for, our economies are changing, global economies are changing, the paradigms, the 20th century paradigms are gone. Whether we know that, but the 20th century paradigms are gone. We are a quarter of our way into the 21st century, and economies are evolving on a daily basis.
the second point that I want to bring in that, that Teddy indicated is that where you're going to see your growth are from small, medium-sized businesses, whether you're exporting or whether it's importing. So you really need to kind of look at that and focus and see where there are connections, where there's a symbiosis, see where it makes sense for you to actually export. And you actually have to sit and really be intentional about how you do that. So one of those areas, which is the area where I focus, is in that, impact investing, social impact investing, social enterprises. I know in at least 2 of the countries that are here, meeting SDGs is really important, and is really important to their economies. So whether it is in organic agriculture, or it is in clean energy, or it is in social enterprises, look at how you can look at what in your business can then fit a niche to then really expand and grow a market for you, as well as the places where you want to land. So now I'm going to shut up.
Well, thank you. Now I'm going to bring up Michael and get to go back on to bring him up. And I could be your slide person, or you can run from the
I
kiosk.
can go there. Yeah, no worries.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
And it's just down arrow and away you go.
Oh, well, I think I know how to press the button as well. Yeah, no problem. Well, thank you so much, Select Chicago, for hosting us. I represent an organization called the Export Promotion Agency of Costa Rica, Procomer. We are part of the Ministry of Trade, or under the umbrella of the Ministry of Trade in Costa Rica. I wanted to say that we have 2 main ministries, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is represented in here by the Consul General, Mr. Jose David Murillo, and located here in Chicago, which will be the person in contact in case you want to develop or move forward to develop some sort of business with Costa Rica. And of course, our organization, which is the one that is promoting trade as well constantly. We have an office in New York and another office in Miami. So we need the support of the consulates, of course, around the states in order to keep growing and working together. I wanted to present a little bit about Costa Rica. I think it's an interesting case. I know the buttons, but this one is quite interesting. Yeah. There you go. There are several in here, right? And now I get it. All right. I wanted to introduce Costa Rica as a small country with a huge vision. We like to describe it like that just because we're a country that had exceeded all the expectations. And we have actually achieved a phenomenal social progress. Having said that, I have to say that we are mainly known because we are a strong tourism destination. Pretty much 75% of the persons who come down to Costa Rica, they do it just for pleasure, just to know a little bit about us. And 13% of the ones who comes down, they do it for business. So we've been doing a really strong effort on changing that perspective, on bringing a little bit of knowledge of why we believe we have exceeded all these expectations. Costa Rica has executed an international market insertion strategy based on export promotion as an economic engine, export diversification, markets access, and attraction of foreign direct investment. This actually had happened mainly because we actually had bet and we actually have taken very strong decisions. We believe that, and we were very proud on this type of decision. We abolished armies since 1949, and we're very proud to say that we have the strongest democracy in the entire Latin America. With the pacification of the country and the abolition of the army, we actually established the new rule of law, and that is a very strong thing to say nowadays, mostly in Latin America, you know. And with that, we invest everything that had been invested in the Army into education. And that's one of our most important assets, to be honest. The education and the good system of universal health and infrastructure. Of course, we have been investing a lot on our macroeconomic stability in order to have a very strong country, a getaway for the entire Americas. I have to say that Costa Rica has shown a deep transformation of our export basket thanks to this strategy. And it happened to be a concentrated country in just a few agricultural products, coffee and banana mainly. And to be honest, we've been able and capable to attract investment and develop a new transformation of our basket into a very sophisticated product basket and services. Indeed, between 1996 and 2018, the number of products in our export basket have risen from 2,900 to 4,500. The number of markets where we are actually sending those products changes from 136 to 155 countries. And the number of companies, the portfolio of companies that we support had been increased since 1,400 to almost 3,000. With that said, I have to say that the country had been able to open the market to a very robust network of foreign trade agreements, and that is probably one of our most important assets when it comes to trade and investment. We have free trade agreements with more than 15 countries. Due to our privileged location, we have preferential access to 2/3 of the world GDP, and almost a potential market for anyone that wanted to do business in the entire Latin American market of 2.5 billion inhabitants. So we believe that this small country had been capable to make dramatic transformation and probably is a quite unique business case to think about. We've been considered by the World Bank the #1 exporter of high value-added services, the #1 in production and process sophistication in Latin America. We are the #1 in innovation in the region as well. So with that said, areas of opportunity for anyone that wanted to come and or develop business from Costa Rica and to Costa Rica will be these main industries. Life science, believe it or not, many consider us many years ago as a banana republic. I now can say that, proudly said that we are a medical device republic. This is our #1 product of exports, the second largest in Latin America. We are the #1 exporter per capita of medical devices. With that, of course, a lot of capabilities on developing as well pharmaceuticals, medical devices class 1 to class 3, and a lot of components and getting into biotech as well. In the smart manufacturing world, we're proud of being part of the global value chains, mainly because of our ability to get into the aerospace industry as well from Costa Rica, believe it or not. The food industry is, of course, one of our great endowments. We are #1 exporters of golden pineapple, the 3rd exporter of banana, of course, we're still exporting bananas, and the #2 exporter of coffee as well. We've been changing our basket of products through technology and sophistication, and nowadays we say that we are very proud a good supplier of organic, natural, carbon neutral, superfoods, and unique specialty food products. The services industry is, of course, one of our key components within our value chain. And with that, as I said before, we are the #1 exporter of knowledge base intensive services in Latin America, and the third in overall dollars. We have a very strong multifunctional and multilingual capabilities that had helped us attract 20% of the Fortune 100 companies down to the country. Developing process from business processing outsourcing, internet of IT outsourcing, to cloud computing, IoT, data analytics, cognitive computing, and so on and so forth. We do promote a very beneficial package of incentive for those that wanted to come down to set up operations as well. But we also support the multinational companies that are already established in the country to go internationally. This, as Theo mentioned before, is a two-way type of business. Is a new type of developing businesses internationally, which means definitely support the ones that are already established in the country or the ones that had a potential to go international to set up an operation. So Chicago for sure is one of our most important hopes for the medical device industry and advanced manufacturing industry, and we definitely believe that there is a lot of potential to keep working together and collaborate. So with that said, I wanted to invite the audience as well. We do have a trade show happening, which is a trade mission. We bring buyers down to Costa Rica to evaluate both the local and the international suppliers that we have in the country. This is happening in September 17. We are actually hosting a breakfast this Friday at the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, which we really do appreciate for both the consulate and the Illinois Chamber of Commerce for hosting us. And everybody is invited, so please, you are welcome to come. Thank you very much. Michael?
Okay. So Wenchel, if you want to stay there, you can use the podium and talk about.
I'll sit here, it's easier.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Good morning. My name is not Michael.
In a different types of spelling, yeah.
I represent Hong Kong's commercial sector in the Midwest. And more importantly, my organization helped international company to do more business, to expand their operations in Hong Kong, mainland China, and the rest of Asia. I'd like to see a show of hand if you are looking into expanding overseas. Okay, great. Now, this subject is about soft landing program, and I'm going to use a case study later on to explain a little bit about Hong Kong. It's really depending on your company's products, services, strategies, and objective. Hong Kong may offer some unique advantages, especially for medium-sized company. But for years, most of the major corporations in Chicago have already set up operations in Hong Kong for years. Mainly because of its proximity to mainland China and Southeast Asia. Which makes Hong Kong a very unique hub in the sense of, from a marketing and operational standpoint. I'd like to use a recent example that we have been working with this company for the last few years. They use Hong Kong as a hub. It's a well-known confectionery company based in the U.S. Last year, they set up a regional headquarters in Hong Kong, really to expand the business in mainland China and the rest of Asia. The company has 20 retail outlets in Asia, including 5 in Hong Kong. And is currently expanding. Now, you may say, why Hong Kong? Hong Kong is one of the most expensive places to operate, and the market is very small. It's 7.5 million population. Well, here are the reasons. First of all, the ease of doing business in Hong Kong. Right? For your information, Hong Kong is ranked the world's freest economy for the last 25 years. It's also rated the best place to be self-employed. The most friendly tax system, rated by Pricewaterhouse. Also one of the easiest economy in the world to set up a business. You can actually do it online and require startup capital of $1 US. No, as a matter of fact, 1 Hong Kong dollar. Overseas company, all of you enjoy the same treatment as a Hong Kong-based company. Same treatment. Very low tax, 15% income tax, 16.5% corporate profit tax. Now, if your company profit is below 255,000 US, your profits tax is only 8.25%. Hong Kong has a very highly developed supply chain in the region. It's the busiest air cargo hub, and it's one of the busiest seaports in the world. Highly developed financial market, one of the largest IPO market in the world. And if you're interested in mainland China and also ASEAN, Southeast Asia, Hong Kong has free trade agreement with mainland China and also ASEAN. Okay. So that's also, if you set up your operation in Hong Kong, you can take advantage of this free trade agreement. The legal system is very, very similar to the US and UK, based on common law. English is one of the 2 official languages in Hong Kong. Any dispute, if you're in arbitration or in the Court of Hong Kong, English is the recognized language. Last year, we had about close to 70 million visitors, very comparable with Chicago. Over 60% of them came from mainland China and Asia. So it makes really a very good marketing hub if you want to show off your products, to the whole regions. Very easy access to supporting services from my organization and multiple Hong Kong government agency. As a matter of fact, we have been working with this confectionery company for the last few years. We provide in-depth consultation service in the area of supply chain management, banking, staffing, locations. And one day, if you're really thinking about expanding into Asia, I would like to talk with you. Another example is U of Chicago Booth School. They set up a new campus in Hong Kong last November. The reason being is that they want to expand the executive MBA program, of course, in mainland China and also in Southeast Asia. I'd like to mention one of our sister organizations, is Invest Hong Kong. They don't have a setup in Chicago. They're based in New York, but they cover the state of Illinois. They're also a government agency, and their sole responsibility is to help you if you're interested in setting up an operation in Hong Kong. They will provide a really tailor-made service to you. Okay. So that's it.
Great.
Hopefully that's helped.
Wonderful. So Shakira, did you need the videos too, or do you don't need the videos? I have to swap things around.
South Africa has one of the deepest financial markets in the world. We have a fantastic stock exchange. We have many sophisticated financial institutions, both insurance companies and banks. There is deep liquidity in the markets, both in the debt markets and the equity markets. And companies and investors that want to get into the country can do so easily, but they can also exit easily. And so for foreign investors, this is a very important distinguishing factor for South Africa relative to other markets. Goldman Sachs sees South Africa as a base for our African business, like other multinationals, for a variety of reasons. There is a deep legal system with deep institutions, free press, a strong constitution, and a modern market environment, not least of which there is a beautiful climate that we see today, a lifestyle that is the envy of many. Goldman Sachs produced this report called Is South Africa the Hot Emerging Market of 2018? And essentially what it was arguing was on a relative basis to other emerging markets throughout the world, be it Russia, Turkey, Brazil and others. South Africa stands out in the post-transition of the presidency to Cyril Ramaphosa as an environment which offers opportunity. This political change, together with the president's economic policy contained in his State of the Nation address in February, gives a very clear roadmap as to where South Africa is going. You know, Africa today is around 2% of the world's GDP and 15% of the world's population. That difference tells you about the opportunity for growth. South African companies like Shoprite, MTN, Standard Bank and many others are taking advantage of the potential growth into the continent, and these extremely well-run companies are building their businesses in Africa, as are other multinationals like General Electric, Unilever, Total. Many of these companies are identifying Africa as the next large growth region of the world. What inspires me is the youth, music and creativity and innovation. One gets extremely inspired when one thinks about what's coming out of Silicon Valley and how that can transform lives. You know, Africa is full of these young people, full of this opportunity. Transformation and innovation is the name of the game, and that's what inspires me.
In addition to the video, I also had a very long presentation, but I decided that I would like to have more engagement with you and just give you a few more points in terms of South Africa and the USA. So you've heard about South Africa and our characteristics, but I'd like to focus now on why US companies should look at expansion and expansion opportunities, not just into South Africa, but into the African continent. I'm very excited to talk about the African Continental Free Trade Area. This is a trade agreement that has been signed by 54 countries in Africa. And as Chipo said, it's all about collaboration. We're not competing with each other. We've decided that in 10 years' time, we want to have trade liberalization between all of these countries. 27 countries have ratified that agreement. And this is an amazing opportunity for all of the US companies and those based here in Chicago to look at expanding. If you have a product or service and you want to reach a market of 1 billion people, a GDP of $2.3 trillion as well, then you should look into Africa. The consumer base is of young consumers, and in many areas in Africa, they don't have access to so many goods and services. So they would be willing to pay a premium for those goods and services from, for example, the USA. Coming back to the USA in terms of collaboration, the USA is regarded as a very important partner to Africa. Actually, about 43% of all foreign direct investment into the African continent is from US companies. And that's because they understand the opportunities in Africa, which vary across consumer goods, infrastructure and development, utilities, services, and I can go on and on. And in terms of the African continent, we as South Africans are on par with, for example, Morocco, with the largest number of investment projects, as noted by FDA Markets last year. So that's a major opportunity for yourselves who are looking to expand and who want to integrate into those global value chains as well. Besides that, South Africa is a very open economy. We're very well diversified. We have a trading agreement with the USA, which is called the African Growth and Opportunities Act. It is in existence until 2025. It covers about 7,000 product lines. And we all know of the escalating trade tensions between, for example, China and the US, and the impact on certain industries like the footwear industry. While many US companies are now looking at focusing on the African continent with a lot of investment in places such as Kenya, Ethiopia, because we don't have that challenge of duties in terms of our footwear and apparel, which can enter duty-free into the USA. And those 7,000 product lines cover apparel, footwear, motor vehicles, capital equipment, the steel, and the agricultural sector. So that, again, is a huge opportunity. I'm going to jump back to South Africa, where many US multinationals are located. In fact, we've just had a few announcements last week. PepsiCo actually acquired a South African company called Pioneer Foods for $1.8 billion. And then Ford made an announcement that it was increasing its workforce by 25% and ramping up production in Pretoria. So there is just so much of cross-border transactions that are happening at the moment. From the US perspective, we have various food companies that have identified the US as a key market, and we have we also have a confectionery manufacturer, but we have a South African confectionery manufacturer that is looking at locations in terms of expanding their manufacturing facilities in the US to service that market. We have quite a few South African businesses that have been in existence in Chicago for years now. We have a company called Vitality, which is a lifestyle incentive provider. It's regarded as a disruptor in the healthcare system. It incentivizes a healthy lifestyle in terms of your medical aid. We have a retail franchise that has been aggressively expanding in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area, and it's called Nando's. So there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration between the USA and South Africa, and for using South Africa as your headquarters for the rest of Africa, and for getting access to those huge South African companies that are looking to bring their products and services into the USA. So as I said, I have a lot that I could speak about, but I want to end there. I don't want to take too much of time because we must enjoy our South African wine later on. But I would like to say that one of the key industries that we're focusing on is the business process outsourcing industry, focusing not just on call centers, but other high-value transaction processing. And we, at the moment, are looking at recruiting US companies. We will be funding a visit to South Africa in November, so we are keen to engage with many US companies about that. And we also have an event that's happening in South Africa in November. It is the President's Investment Seminar, because one of the challenges we realize in terms of getting more communication with our investors is that we needed to have more engagement, regular engagement on a quarterly basis between our president and our leaders and the international investment community. And we've had several visits to the US, but now we're inviting companies to visit South Africa and see what it's all about. So that's all I would like to say briefly, and I'm looking forward to you finding out more information about South Africa. We are available, myself and my colleague who is here with me, Mr. Shizeve, and we can share business cards with all of you. We're looking forward to speaking to US companies and getting information about the different municipalities so that we can share that with South African companies looking to expand into this market too. Thank you very much.
Let me fix the slide deck again on that. But now I wanted to work with our panel here really to talk about now that you've learned some more about these different countries, what they're looking for, and mainly I'm really pushing this towards our municipalities in the audience, especially, I know a lot of the background on our steering committee and a number of the SelectChicago community partners that we've had for the last couple of years. But really what we're trying to get across is, as we look at the Chicago mega region, that has its own growth trajectory. But with the demographics that we're looking at in the United States, and we also have declining birth rates as the companies are starting to look for that next leg of growth. And I'm mainly thinking about all the companies that are all within your borders of municipalities. Where is that next generation of growth going from? Just as like we like to bring foreign direct investment here because a new business, whether it's a Foxconn or it's a Haribo, the gummy bear company, those are value added to the communities. They're bringing in new foreign direct investment. They're not taking one side from the other. Similarly, when your businesses within your communities are looking to expand to Hong Kong, Costa Rica, South Africa, or Poland, the opportunity is they're growing their economic pie, and you're being able to get a leg up. And what's really great about the programs that they have, and they all have different flavors, is the type of assistance. So really what I want to kind of hear is, Wenchel, you talked a little bit about the Invest Hong Kong. So what type of programs of, if I had a company that's looking to get to Hong Kong and expand, what type of resources could they bring to bear?
We don't have a set program, but it's more, again, depending on the product, the strategies and objective. They will really sit down with you and go through all the steps, from getting your register. First of all, of course, provide market intelligence, whether it makes sense for you, first of all, to be in Hong Kong. And also what's the business opportunity for you in Hong Kong, mainland China, and the rest of Asia, and they'll walk you through how to set up operation, bank account, and if you Google Invest HK, and you get into their website, and is a tons of information available. And as a matter of fact, as I mentioned, you can actually register a business online. Great.
And Michael?
Yep. In our case, we have, as I mentioned, 3 main organizations. I mentioned 2 of them before, the Ministry of Foreign Trade, and with us, the institution that will be the facilitator. Then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that will do a strong liaison between the 2 of us. And then we also have another organization who is actually in charge of the deployment when it comes to attraction of investment. The three of us, we do work on building a strong business case for the company that wanted to set up an operation in the country. With that said, as Theo mentioned before, many of the opportunities that comes to us starts with requesting for demand. And I'm going to explain myself a little bit more. What I'm saying in this case, for example, in the services industry, in the technology industry, many companies come knocking our doors saying, well, I wanted to expand. However, I need to create a demand first. And creating a demand first means that they need a contract in the region. Mm-hmm. And with that said, it means that it put us in another position where we have to start moving backwards and support them in order to create a business case. So we have learned through the years that that's something that we have to implement, and we've been doing that during the past 20 years, creating the landscape for not only those ones that wanted to look for cheap labor, but for those ones that wanted to see Costa Rica as a strong getaway. With that said, we do the regular traditional services, which is hosting trade missions, hosting that company that wanted to set up an operation down, or helping that one that is actually coming from outside, that is coming from Costa Rica to the different markets where we are located. I just wanted to add to that something unique that I believe it's important for us is that once a company set up an operation in Costa Rica, or they already have the landfill in the country, they become a Costa Rican company to us and to our services. It means that we will present the entire portfolio of products and services from that perspective. Whether it is Baxter Healthcare or a little small tiny Costa Rican company that is tier 3, tier 2, or that is actually supporting the rest of the supply chain in the medical device industry, we will do we will do our best effort to promote business for them. And all our budget dollars, marketing dollars that goes to supporting the country will include them within our portfolio. So that's something that we will do in order to generate business for them. Very strategic. When I said that, we have the strongest level of accountability in the process. We work as a traditional private organization. We do have our own Salesforce, our own CRM system. We input our own opportunities in the process and do follow up till completion and success.
Great. Shakira.
We have an organization that...
Hey.
Can you all hear me?
Okay.
Yes, we have an organization called Invest South Africa, and this is regarded as a one-stop shop that provides a hand-holding service to all potential investors in terms of supporting, in terms of access to financial support by the government, be it debt or equity via our Development Finance Institute, or incentives that we offer. We do liaison between different departments in terms of facilitation of that investment, anything regarding utilities, energy, water permits. The organization also liaises on a state and municipal level with the different stakeholders, basically holding the hand of the investor from the time they would like to explore the opportunity to the business case, the information, and the actual investment itself in terms of setting up that greenfield investment in the location or area. And not just, it doesn't just end at the investment, there will be aftercare and facilitation services as well, because we believe that existing satisfied investors can always become investors who expand into other projects. And that has been the case. For example, automotive producers like Ford, who are so happy with the services that they received in South Africa. And then we also, as a government on a national level, we are constantly evaluating our rankings, our competitiveness rankings, as well as our ease of doing business. And when we identify those challenges in certain areas, like starting up a business and the time it takes to register the company, or registering a property, tax payment issues, then we look at measures to implement to improve on that. And we have various measures in place to ensure that the process is much more simplified in the case of South Africa.
Great. And I'm going to skip over Chipo to go to Michael about setting up businesses and you talked a little bit about incentives, but also any hand-holding types of services for the municipalities as they're looking to go to Poland.
Sure. So, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. So, well, basically, like in terms of, as I mentioned, like during the presentation, let's say that, like we are usually the first point of contact with our, like all the information we have about the incentives and everything that exists there. So usually, when there's, let's say, a company moving to Poland or like seriously interested in this, we have the whole team in Poland of actually divided into different industries, specializing in a variety of industries, and they will work with a company, with a potential investor, with helping them in terms of location, all the incentives, taxation, or, well, in terms of programs, because we spoke a little bit about the programs, so programs strategic for Polish economy are also, they're also available. Assistance is available, like financial assistance from the government, up to 50% of financing. That's another thing. In terms of the municipalities here in Chicago, obviously we would work together in terms of bringing Polish companies here. So it usually starts with an exporting efforts. We're getting a lot of inquiries from Polish businesses to help them with finding agents, help them with finding distribution channels as the first step of exporting, and then the follow-up step is usually establishing a trade office, a sales office, here in the Midwest, and then possibly assembly line or manufacturing plant. It's usually the three-step approach with the exporting, sales office, and assembly or factory.
Great. Well, I want to have a little bit of time for questions, but just let's do two, because I know we're all waiting for the next part of this. So, questions? Leslie, you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I'd be interested in knowing, coming from a municipal perspective, if any of you are already doing your own outreach to local businesses in the Chicagoland area, promoting services that each of your consulate or your trade associations are doing. And if not, or would it be helpful to you if the communities that are represented through SelectChicago would do our own outreach to all the businesses in our community, saying all of these agencies, groups that have set forth here today, are interested in working with you to further expand, or is that overkill? Just curious about what your outreach has been.
Yeah, Mego, it's a great question actually, and from our perspective, Polish Trade Office perspective, we've been working with local chambers of commerce or SelectChicago or like other organizations, because we cover a huge area, like Midwest. So we have to obviously work with local institutions or regional development organizations, because those are the organizations. You are the organizations who actually know your area the best. So in order to help, let's say, our companies in our countries to match them with the best business partners locally, we have to work through those organizations, because that's the most efficient way. It will be really difficult for a trade office to actually establish this relationship with every single individual business. I mean, we're still trying to do it to some extent, but there are thousands of companies. So let's say if we cover 12 industries, if let's say an automotive, food, and let's say yacht manufacturer, 3 different companies, 3 different industries, each of them is looking for a connection here. So the best way for me will be to actually reach one of the municipality or several municipalities and try to find connections through this network with individual businesses willing to learn more and establish those cooperations with those companies. That will be probably the best and most efficient approach, and that's what we've been doing over the last year.
Yeah,
Can
and I'll
I-
go down. I'll do
to that as
Chipo,
well?
and then Shakira, and then I know Teodora has a question too. So
What I would urge you to do as your development agencies is really do a deeper dive in, okay, what are your assets, that you have, and what are your assets that you have individually within your community, but then also, as I said, in collaboration with your peers, with your peer organizations and your peer communities, because then you can come and say, okay, this is what we're looking for. So I was speaking with some folks earlier today, and they have the land available for hotel operations, but it also can be used for food and ag. So it is okay, if you are looking for someone who can then come in, or looking for distribution, or thinking about it again in that broad sense. I know my peer community has this asset. I can connect them. We can connect them, and we can put together something that then is beneficial and lucrative for all of us. From a regional perspective and from a peer perspective. But then it's also not just think about this, what we have, and this what we want people to come and give our money to. So really have to kind of open up that thinking.
great, Shakira.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that I represent the South African Department of Trade and Industry, and I focus on the Midwest and the West Coast. So those are 27 states in total. So it's very difficult for one person to be able to have deep roots in every state, with every institution. But having said that, that's why we are very open to exchanging information and collaboration, because the only way we would know about these opportunities is if we exchange information. And we would love to share information in terms of the industrial strengths in South Africa, as well as what the potential opportunities would be in the different municipalities and how we can collaborate. We actually do have a good relationship with a company in Skokie, for example, which has innovative technology that converts waste material to energy, to ethanol. And that company has licensed their technology to a South African company, and they are establishing a huge plant in South Africa with immense jobs that will be created, about 12,000 jobs that will be created. And in rand terms, the value, and I cannot do my calculations well, it's divided by 15, but it's 2.5 billion rand. So we would love to collaborate on that level, even in terms of technical transfer opportunities. Thank you.
Great. Then Michael.
Collaboration is always important. I think that exchanging information is helpful, and definitely working with you will be great. In terms of outreach, we'll be happy to share it, and looking forward to receive some of your information in order to share with our databases. I mean, the good thing of social media nowadays is that it is easy to communicate now. It's much better. So, of course, I'm super open, and through the council, the council general is super helpful in bringing that message down or up.
Yeah, Winchell, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I'm
No? Okay. Teodora, you had a question or a statement?
Yes.
So, my question is, let's get a look on the other side. Yes, you just do a ton of work for a company that are going to your company. But my question is related to the company that comes here, and it's probably related to what the companies actually get as difficulties here. What kind of questions do you receive? Like what kind of problems does this company has? And for Chico, it's also the same question. What the other companies, the foreign investors that are coming here from the U.S. are asking for? Is there any threat of these questions? Like, for example, there is a specific mismatching between what they want and what they get.
Yeah.
So that's my question, if this will be more helpful for municipalities.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I want to start with Chipo on that in the middle.
Okay. Thank you for that question. Right. The major, I've been trying to get to, essentially, I've been trying to get to that question as I've been communicating with everyone. And it goes to like my fourth point on that cultural competency. So everyone thinks they know the United States, but there's not a great understanding of the regional variations, and then the sub-regional cultural variations. So, as we know, doing business in the South is going to be vastly different from doing business in the Midwest or doing business on the West Coast. So as you think and as you think about and look at what your offerings, how you communicate, as I was saying, it is crafting. First of all, it's considering, okay, what's available to me from the legal perspective, the economic perspective, in working with the State Chamber. We have the benefit of having Laura Ortega here. And who is a great connect the dots person. So it is, okay, here are our assets. We have the skills, we have the labor, knowing what your tax, what your tax protocols and what your tax requirements are, because for the companies coming in here, there's not only your federal tax and your federal/corporate tax, you have your state tax, and then you may be subject to local taxing authorities based on your industry, based on your industry, based on what sector you're in, and based on whatever business that you're bringing in. Then you look at generally your labor and your workforce laws and those considerations. So it is how you're going to work, whether it's going to be hierarchical, structural, it's going to be a lot of outsourcing, so it's going to be a lot of contractors. So really think about what is going to be the corporate, but also the social and corporate cultural environment that you have to offer, and the questions that your foreign partners who are coming in are going to have to ask. Because again, everyone thinks that they kind of understand and they know America culturally, but there's there's layers and there's complexities. So the things that you do kind of automatically, it is really kind of unpack those questions, unpack those issues, and like, okay, this is how I am approaching it. Okay, we want to have jobs in this community, but do we want to be able to integrate an incoming business and incoming workforce into this community, and how will we be able to do that? And what do we now bring? What assets, what benefits do we now bring for this company coming here to say we have this, not just the taxes, but we have the taxes, we have the schools, we have the parks, we have the community, we have, the business community where people can easily move and navigate, that they don't have to like bring and transfer all of that. So it's not just looking at the dollar signs, but it is looking at it holistically in the questions that you answer, but then the questions that they will have as a secondary matter if like, okay, the market is ripe for us to exploit.
Great, and actually I'm gonna cut it off here. We're actually a little long for this because I know we want to get to lunch, but I'm sure all our panelists will be around during lunch if you want to talk a little bit more. But also, as in our next speakers, as they come up after lunch, is going to be talking about case stories about people who've actually come and talking about what we talk about at Select Chicago is that total fit. And it's about everything that everybody's talking about here today, which is about which that community is going to be the right community for you, and it's not just always about the incentives. And so we'll be talking about that. I want to give a round of applause for our panel. And with that, lunch is served.